Alright, so we're going to pick back up right where we left off. Except I just messed around and accidentally deleted that. Okay. Which now I don't have to rush quite as much since I have a whole new 15 minutes. So, where do we leave off? PTH travels through the bloodstream to the kidney. And two different things are going to happen at the kidney. First of all, PTH will signal for calcium reabsorption within the nephron tubules. So that means that that will reduce calcium excretion that will reduce calcium excretion in the urine if it's being reabsorbed. And you can zoom out. When you're on this, you can zoom out and you can see like you have a little bit more space. So I'm actually going to select all of these and move them over. Super simple, because I'm going to drag that one over. I'm going to need more room in a second. And now I can just kind of zoom back in. Okay. So I need an arrow. From there to here. And another arrow. So when you make yours, the formatting is really going to be up to you. You can do words on the lines and main ideas in the boxes. Formatting really doesn't matter. You can get creative, you can do it just like me. As long as all the information's there in the right amount of depth, then you can make it look however you want. As long as it is in some type of loop formation. Because the idea with feedback, whether it's positive or negative, is that it does move in a loop. Because we're always returning back to homeostasis. It is a cycle that just continues and continues and continues. Okay, I keep getting a little bit off track. So, output signals for calcium reabsorption within the nephron tubules, which reduces calcium excretion in the urine. Output synthesizes vitamin D, and what that does is it actually increases calcium absorption in the small intestine. And I could even make that into probably like 2 separate boxes. I could say that, the target of the vitamin D is the small intestines. If I wanted to, I think I'm just going to leave it like that. And so all these 3 things, calcium from bone stores is released in the bloodstream, reduced calcium excretion in the urine, and increases calcium absorption in the small intestine. Those 3 things all lead to the same thing. So let's see if I can make this look decent here. Sorry, I know this part isn't super, interactive. I'm just trying to make it look how I want it to. Okay. So now all the arrows are going to come back together. to this box. Oh, shoot. You can like bend, as you can see I'm having a little bit of trouble with arrows, but you can like bend them and do whatever you need to them really. I'm going to move that one a little bit over. So these three things all have the same result, and that is one of the things you do need to include is like the final result that's going to essentially lead us back to homeostasis. So the result in this case is an increase in blood calcium levels and that brings us back to homeostasis. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So here's my full loop. If you wanted, you could even put the title in the middle. Like this software is super easy to use because look, all I have to do is double click and a text box pops up and I can just type the title right in there. Now, in PBS, we talked a little bit, and I know not all of you had PBS, but we also talked about positive feedback, and with oxytocin specifically, we would see a positive feedback mechanism, but really oxytocin is one of the only examples, or one of the only like good examples of positive feedback. So your ADH and calcitonin feedback loops will both be negative as well, which means whatever your stimulus is, whatever the change is, your result is going to counteract that change. So it's essentially going to be the opposite of, they're going to be opposite of each other, and that's going to bring us back to homeostasis. Let's see. So you can, like I said, you can format this however you want to, really. You can change the font. You can change the size of the font. However you want it to look. There's my title. It doesn't, like the rubric itself, which is this paper that you all have, it doesn't say you have to have color or anything like that. Really, the word you need to focus on is neat, which needs to be neat so I can read it, especially if you're drawing it on paper. So this automatically saves just like your other documents on Google Drive. But what you need to do if you do use this software, and since I have a couple minutes left, I'll show you how to access this from your drive. But what I typically do is just click Move to Folder, and I just hit No Pick Folder. So that way I know exactly where it's going to end up when I save it. So this one specifically, I'll put in my school folder. I'll just put it in my little HBS folder. Otherwise, it goes in an automatic, like Draw.io folder, which may be harder to find. So I would recommend just choosing which folder you want it in. So let me go through this really quickly one time through, and then I'll show you how you open this software from your drive. So, again, we begin with homeostasis. In this case, that would be normal blood calcium levels. If you want to get real fancy, you can actually put the value or the range for what normal levels would be, but that's not required. Then for the stimulus, in this case, I decided the stimulus would be prolonged use of acid reducer imesopral, which has been shown to reduce blood calcium levels. I researched that. I didn't know that. So there is, a research aspect to this assignment. I don't expect you to just know all these things. Then we have a change. So the change is a decrease in blood calcium levels. And this is what we're going to try to counteract by this mechanism, this feedback loop. So the sensory gland in this loop is the parathyroid glands, which detect the change in blood calcium levels. And the parathyroid glands release parathyroid hormone, so that is their output. Parathyroid hormone has two main targets. So it travels through the bloodstream and interacts with bone cells, which are called osteoclasts. Those osteoclasts on the bone surface release calcium stores, and the calcium from the bone stores is released into the bloodstream. PTH also travels to the kidney. At the kidney, it does two things. It synthesizes vitamin D, or essentially activates vitamin D, and it also signals for calcium reabsorption within the nephron tubules. So reduced calcium excretion in urine, and then increased calcium absorption in the small intestines, and those three things all lead to this result, which is an increase in blood calcium levels, which then takes us back to homeostasis. And again, it's a cycle. So the stimulus may not always be the same. Hopefully you go to your doctor and they determine the cause of your low calcium levels, and you could stop that medication or whatever the case may be. But the stimulus may not always be the same, but this loop is always happening. Our body is hopefully always regulating these levels, unless you have some kind of disorder that impacts your parathyroid gland, and that's what we'll talk about more into next week, is hormone disorders or endocrine system disorders. So really quick, how do you access this? From your drive, if you go, you can really do two places. You can click your waffle, click more from, I already have it, but I'll show you how to find it. You click more from G Suite Marketplace and just type in Dryo. And it is this one. And it's diagrams.net. You click it. I already have it installed, but it should say install right here, and you would just click install. And then once you have it installed, you'll go back to your drive. You will, typically when I'm ready to make a new document, I just click new, and then I go to more, and then I find, it used to be called Dryo. It may be called diagrams.net now, but I still found it by typing in Dryo. But anyways, for a new one, you just click it, and it'll take you to this screen. I just always start with a blank diagram. You could start really with whatever you wanted to, but it's so easy to just get started on a blank one, so I just always do a blank one. Okay, so hopefully that helps. I will also post this final product on your classroom if you just want to look at this and have a chance to go through that. So as you work on your ADH and calcitonin negative feedback loops, just let me know if you have any questions.